So in today's lecture, we will discuss the overloading and overriding concepts in the concept of object-oriented programming. If you haven't seen the lesson number 1, please refer to it where we discuss the inheritance. So let's assume we have a set of classes. In here today I'm going to use a simple class hierarchy in which I have a journal class which I am calling pet. So I have a pet class which is going to be my parent class, and this will be extended by, and for this exercise I'm only extended it to a pet cat and a dog. So the characteristic in the pet class will be inherited by cat and dog. So in the pet class I didn't do much in here. I just have a string name and a method, a void method, namely speak. So let me show you how I set it up. So here first I will show you my pet class. My pet class has a simple string name, and then I have a method speak that doesn't do anything. It's a void method, doesn't return anything. And my other two methods are just get and set name for my pet. So keep an eye on this method. Okay, so this one is just a very method that doesn't do much, and it actually doesn't do anything in the pet class, because basically you say a pet, you don't know what type of pet do you have. It could be a cat, a dog, a bird, or a parakeet, or whatever we can think of. So what we can do is I have my cat class which I have extended pet. So everything in the cat class is inherited first from the pet class, and then you can see that here this speak method is different than the speak method in pet. In pet, the speak method has nothing in here, but pay attention to the method signature. What is a method signature? A method signature is the statement that has the method protected access, whether it's a public, private, protected, what type of method that is, then its return type, and then the name of the method and the argument list. If we keep all of this exactly similar like we have done in this particular situation, it's exactly the same thing. The only thing we have changed is the body of the method. Then we say that we have overridden that method. So cat although has inherited a method, but it has changed it. It has changed it to a method of its own implementation. So the method in pet is actually being overridden by the method in cat class. Okay. So now cat does have, if I leave that, if I comment it out, then we will have this method that doesn't do anything. Now let's look at another version of it. Here what I have done is I haven't kept the method name is same, but as you can see I have changed the argument list. I have changed the argument list. Here I am also accepting an integer which I am calling n, and what I'm doing is that as many time or user has entered 3 or 4 or whatever n is, I am repeating that meow 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 printout as many times as in here. So basically what I have done is I have presented two versions of the same method. This one is an exact copy of the pet class. So we have what we have inherited from our parent. We have overridden the behavior, keeping the method signature exactly the same. Now the next point is that we created the method name is same. Method name is same, but what we have done is we have changed the argument list. Now it becomes a new method. Whenever the compiler sees a speak call with a number in it, then it will go to this method rather than the first method. And this is called overloading. Okay, in overloading we keep the method name same, but the method signature can change, and I will discuss to you how there are some things that we have to keep in mind when we do the overloading. Overriding, exact same method signature, change the body. Overloading, you can make changes in the method signature, and of course you can change the changes in the method body as well. So let me show you my other example. Here I have the public class dog, which also extends pet, and it has also provided an overridden version of speak by keeping the method exactly similar, or method signature exactly similar from the pet, but it has changed the implementation and also has overloaded this same method by providing another version, exactly similar version that I had done before, but here it's expecting a, except it's also requiring an integer n, so that can repeat that many times. Now this version is called overloaded version of the speak method. Although we have extended or we have inherited the speak method from the pet class, overloading can happen between the same class methods. So you may not have extended the dog class from somewhere else, but you can still have overloaded version of methods in a class, because then the method signature would be same. So one thing that we should understand is what happened is when we go and look for the compiler part. So let me show you one example here. So let's say I have I kind of like give you an example of the cat. So let's say I created a cat. Cat is equal to new cat. Okay. So I created a new cat. This will go into the RAM, find a place for me, and then will replace the location of the memory where this object is stored into this reference variable. So I can say, so I want to say cat dot speak. Now when I call this method, it will go for the method name, and of course it will match with two method names, right? Then after matching with that, it will look into the argument list, and here it will find nothing. So it will match this particular method call exactly with the method name and the argument list. Now let me show you another one. If I say cat dot speak 5, in that case what will happen is that we will go to the location where our object is stored, then we look at the method, we find the method name, but then we have two implementations. Which one should we choose? And then it will look for the implementation that takes an argument of integer, in this case is 5. So that's pretty, so we can say that speak here has an overloaded form in which one is empty and the other one takes an integer. Now, but the original version of speak was in the pet class, and we have overridden it from the pet class. Okay, so you override the methods from your parent, and you can overload the methods that you may have your own, or you can also overload the methods that you have gotten from your parent. Okay, so let's see an example of that, how that will work, because we can get two of those. Now what can happen here is both of them return A, but the compiler is very sure which implementation of speak it is going to call by looking at the method signature. Now if I told you what is the method signature, the method signature for this particular method is public void. So far so good, right? Speak, right? The first one does not take anything. The second one, if I write it down, second one takes an integer, right? Always remember, the very first thing that the compiler does it looks at the method name and then the list of arguments to see what we have written. Now we can also have, let's say you don't want to return a void, but we'll say public string speak and 5, right? So in here, sorry, I should hold on, let me write it down, the argument in here rather than. So take a look at the first and second implementation. Here we have kept the method signature same almost, but the argument list is different. But perfect, right? But here this method signature, the argument list is same. The only thing different is the return type. Now if I call cat.speak n, let's say if I make a object and I call it small case cat and I say 6, now the compiler would be confused whether it should go to this one or whether it should go to that one. So we cannot have, you can have as many overloaded versions as you want, but make sure you don't change only the return type and keep the argument list same. So let me give you another example. If I give you another example in which I changed both the argument list, like say I'm going to return a string and I say speak, and let me say I kind of say there is a string which has a tone, like it could be a soft or and how many times I want to speak. Now when I call this speak overloaded version, in that case I will say cat.speak, I will say soft, for example, and then how many times? 5 times. Now this particular method signature only matches with this one. So if you change the argument list and return type, you are good. If you change the argument list, you are good in overloading. But you cannot only change the return type, because then the compiler will be confused which version you are talking about, because the user will only call with this, this is how the call would be made. So make sure we understand this particular skill. So there are a few points that I'm going to write it down for you all, and then we can finish this lecture. So let's have a little recap. So what is overriding? The concept of overriding means keeping the method signature exactly same as inherited from the parent, but changing only the body, and that will be overriding. Now overloading actually is referring to the different versions of the same method. So multiple methods with the same name but different method signatures, okay? So here I have to say that you can change in multiple versions. You can change the argument list and the return type. An example would be, as I was giving you, this is, this is a method, and this method is an overloaded version of this method. So you can do that. You can change only the argument list and keep the return type same, because argument list is where the compiler looks for which method to go and which instruction set to pull in. But you cannot change the return type and keep the same argument list for 2 versions, because in that case the compiler would be confused which version to call, okay? Now a little bit further. So you can only override an inherited method. Yes, that makes sense, right? You can only override an inherited method from your parent, but you can overload any method from the same class at any time that you would like to do, and any time that as many times as you want to do it. So that's our little discussion of the overloading and overriding. Hope you liked it, and drop in comments if you want any other concepts to be discussed or any examples, another thing that I can explain to you. Thank you.